Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. This is Sean Wargo, Senior Director of Market Intelligence from AVIXA, joining you for our networking session today. I have the pleasure of being joined by Matthew Thompson, Managing Director of AVTEAMUK. Matt, thanks for joining me today for this discussion.
That's great, Sean. Thanks very much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here and honoured to be asked to help on this event. So thank you.
You're quite welcome. Just so you guys all know, we do here at AVIXA have a live events council. Matt is a member of that council. I would encourage you guys, if you want to get engaged with AVIXA and discuss live events, the industry, ways that we can help better serve that industry as an association, we're welcome to do so. Matt, why don't we start with actually just telling the audience a little bit about yourself, your business, kind of where you are. I presented, as you probably heard this morning and have seen the slides around kind of state of industry, but love to just start with your perspective and kind of what you're seeing at AVTEAMUK.
Yeah, sure. Well, Sean, I mean, it's been a troubling year for everybody, especially in the freelance live events market. Obviously, I know and work with a lot of freelance people, and they're all having tough times at the moment. So it's been quite challenging. My background is in live events. I worked at the Royal College of Surgeons for 17 years. We were involved in big kind of international conferences. It's a charity, but we had lots of seminar rooms and theatres, which we hired out corporately. So that's the kind of the background, my background. Big events, I think they're kind of, I don't know if they're going to be coming back. I'd like to say that they are and be positive, but I think that my perspective on it is it's going to change very slowly. It's going to take some time for things to go back to normality.
Absolutely. I think that's what we've talked about this morning too. And I think in previous conversations between us on email, we were talking about, pivoting, how companies might have pivoted. Just a note too, I welcome questions on the side. Feel free to chat them in. Matt and I are going to riff for a while, but feel free to kind of chime in with whatever you would like. Matt, talk to us about that pivot. I know that has not really been feasible, possible in every case for every company. In this environment, it's great to talk about going virtual, standing up what was a physical in-person event and shifting that to online. Have you seen that happen with your clients? And has it always been you that they turn to? What's that been like for a live events company like yourselves?
Well, it's been very difficult. I mean, many of our clients are charities and live event venues, so well, corporate venues as well. But I mean, they've mostly been closed. So for them, there's not really been an option of doing live events in the normal conventional fashion. So for us to deliver a new service, like a managed hybrid event service, it's something we've been trying to do. Some of our more forward-thinking clients have been taking that up and running with it, and that's been great to see. But it has been a challenging time. I can't say that it's been fantastic for us. It's been very hard, but we're certainly looking to the future. We've made investment in new hardware to deliver virtual production and virtual hybrid managed events. So it's something that we're working hard on, and we're looking forward to the future.
Yeah, it sounds great. It sounds for you guys then, it may have been as much the kind of client base that you were normally working with and their kind of need to pull back and scale down and hold off really on events. During the time, did you have, say, new clientele ringing on the door to just say, hey, can you help us there? Sounds like that may even have been a challenge, because what I'm interested in is the kind of competitive landscape. Were companies who were wanting to do virtual just staying with their core providers? Were they looking out in the market for others? So may have been reaching out to you. What were you hearing and kind of seeing in that regard?
Well, I think that what's happened has been a democratization of the technology that enables people to do this kind of thing. So obviously Zoom's become massive. Web conferencing's been sort of taken on by your regular people, and everybody's doing it themselves. So I think part of the competitive challenge for us is being able to sell higher production values to our clients. And I think the added value, the added benefit for an event. We worked on one with LTSMG November, and it was really well attended. It was just a Zoom call, but we tried to push the production values a little bit higher. We had some virtual sets, and there was a lot of stuff sent out by LTSMG to try and integrate with their audience on the day and afterwards. So there was beer sent out, tastings and stuff.
Awesome.
Really well, actually. And at the end of the day, they all stayed on the call drinking the beer. I think they were on the call until 10 o'clock. We wanted to shut the computer down, but we had to kick them all off in the end. But that's the kind of thing. So you try and engage with your audience when you're not in a room. I mean, I used to be on the AV user group. I used to go to all this networking stuff, and it's just not there anymore. And I know it's a big empty void in my life, and I know everybody probably watching this call at the moment, I'm sure they feel the same.
Absolutely. I reflected on that in my comments this morning too. Is I watched the sizzle reel of ISE kind of scroll through, and you see, oh gosh, yeah, there's some familiar faces in there, and wow, wasn't that nice when we didn't worry even about 6 foot of distance with masks and all that sort of stuff. So gosh, here's hoping that we can get back there. I have been curious about this opportunity for, as you're saying, stepping up production value, assisting in that regard, staging virtual, and what the kitting might look like. As you guys know better than I, this is a rental business. It's a rental and staging business underneath it in a lot of cases. So as we kind of go forward and look at hybridization, how do you see that landscape playing out? Is there still kind of that rental and staging opportunity, even in a kind of hybrid model? Is it actually amplified because now there's a need to extend out content to remote audience, live stream, etc.? And so could it be that actually when events do come back, while they may be smaller at first, there's additional production value to be brought to the table? What do you think? Is that real? How do you think that spend's going to go?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I was talking to my wife about this at length yesterday. She comes from the catering background, and obviously the catering industry's been hit massively as well. I think there's an estimated 600,000 people, maybe even up to 1 million people who are out of work in the catering business, and the hotel trade has obviously been badly hit as well. So we were saying that we think 6 months to 36 months is probably within that window. So 6 months for small sort of social gatherings like baby showers, weddings, that kind of thing, moving up to 36 months for your big kind of stadium gigs and stuff. So I think it's going to be a real slow return because people have learned how to do it without all this extra expense, and it's going to be a slow uptake to come back and say, well, we want to do it better than our competitor. And I think because, as I said, it's been democratized, the technology to deliver this kind of content.
For sure. Even at AVIXA, as a trade show operator and a conference event producer as well, we've noted an increased willingness, I think, to accept perhaps a lower production value. It's, as you said, democratized. So even I was doing videos just for my iPhone earlier in 2020, just to kind of share out results of surveys. And so it did seem that audiences are kind of okay with what was, in some cases, I wouldn't say poor quality, but let's just say average quality in terms of those videos. So yeah, it would make sense that opportunity might be slow to come back. I guess the other piece of this could be, say, post-production support around content optimization, redistribution, those kinds of things, portfolio management, content portfolio management. What are you seeing there? Is there any opportunity for a live events producer like yourselves to kind of work with them on that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think the big area that we've focused on is pre-producing content for live events like VTE, so you can play back stuff and make it look a bit more snazzy, reduce the stress on the event on the day, so you can actually have the footage to play back, and also the post-production as well, of course, editing and graphics and so on. So yeah, I mean, as a production company with that hat on, I can say, yeah, that's great. But as an AV rental company, I'm not sure that's got the same potential. The
rental side, cameras, I assume still, that's something that you guys would still be assisting to provide, and perhaps maybe a different scale of them. But even in this kind of virtual event, is that still part of the rental opportunity for now? Or are people making do with, say, Logitech USB cameras, those kinds of things for their capture?
Well, no, I mean, we rent cameras out for this kind of thing as well. So, but what I meant by the AV side was public address, lighting, all the kind of stuff which you might expect on a live, a physical event. I don't think that there's going to be much space for those moving forward. So we may be having a bit of a clear out of our store soon. But yeah, cameras obviously will be using those. Computing equipment, we've made big investment in computing equipment for virtual production and hybrid managed hybrid events. So that's the area that we've been pushing in, and I think that's certainly the way it's going to go. But I mean, I was thinking about this earlier. I mean, my background of, you have a green room with a couple of technicians in, they're putting microphones on presenters, getting PowerPoint presentations, taking them through, how they're going to use the podium and all that kind of stuff in an international conferences, 15 hours a day for 4 days with lots of different breakout rooms and stuff. That is kind of gone now. And that's really my background. So I kind of feel like I'm in over my head, because this is new area for me. I mean, a lot of the people I work with, they're all kind of they've just freshly graduated out of university, and these guys who hit the ground running with regard to things like VMix and Zoom, and obviously taking in lots of calls and doing a virtual production like that. So I'm kind of learning as well.
Yeah, it's a great point. I was wondering about that too. Is this kind of skill up, the education? Yeah, at AVIXA, one thing we did in 2020 was open up our catalog for education, knowing that this is a time where if people are projects are on hold, etc., they kind of have available free time to potentially go back, learn some new things. However, I'm curious about where you go for that, because things were changing so fast. Even an education catalog has a hard time keeping up with what the new skills are. So how are you doing that? Where are you kind of learning about the new things? Just kind of going online and finding what you can? I'm curious.
Well, I mean, one of the benefits of COVID is I've had an awful lot of time on my hands. So yeah, I've been learning a lot of things. I mean, there is no end to the learning possibilities. We're working with Unreal Engine, so we're looking at some of the virtual production capabilities of that. Obviously, that's revolutionized the movie industry, as you'll know, with like Disney's Mandalorian. I mean, everybody can see where this is going to go, and but it's an absolute brain bomb that's going off there. It's crazy. But yeah, anything like that. VMix, I've been learning a lot about VMix. Is that I don't know if they're using it for this particular one actually, but you can have people come in on a call and using virtual cameras, NDI cameras, or using virtual audio connections and bringing Zoom in. There's so much stuff, but I mean, this is just scratching the surface. There's a lot to learn. So.
For sure.
I'm still learning.
Yeah, last month we focused on XR for our Rise Spotlight, just kind of that whole category of bringing in AR, VR, as you're talking about Unreal Engine. It's been great to see how that company has evolved over the years. Gosh, those of us who are old school gamers remember Unreal back in the day just for FPS, first person shooter type experiences online. Great gameplay. And now, of course, it's become how we extend and improve upon on events and movies, etc. So really cool stuff. I can imagine that category, XR, lots to spool up there in terms of kind of how you bring that into your events and production. It makes me wonder, is there actually something to this idea that events become truly kind of virtual in that experience where we're capturing them in a different way? Maybe we're wearing headsets, maybe we're doing something augmented on our handsets. How much do you kind of see that in the near term? Because to me, it still seems like such a far out possibility, considering that there's so much competency that has to now be built out into the channel at companies like yourselves. So is it close? Is it still aspirational? Are we seeing real stuff? I know we have some case studies, but are we seeing real stuff in terms of like true events that you've kind of been privy to or hearing about?
I think there's many challenges, aren't there? And I mean, I'm kind of prepped for talking about real events physical events coming back. But, I can't see that really happening in the near future because it's down to customer. What's the word? Customer
appetite.
Appetite, and I guess there's a lot of fear, isn't there? People don't want to go out, so there's that concern. But regarding doing events completely digitally, I don't know. I think people are suffering burnout, aren't they? And people want to get back out there into the real world, and I think people are desperate for it. So,
yes, indeed, I would 100% agree. And even though it may reflect our bias as organizations focused on this space. I think that's what our survey research is revealing too, is that there is there is a fatigue. There is in some cases, you could call it a desperation. I think that, there are those we're hearing from that say, please, make sure ISE actually comes back in person this year in June. Same thing for Infocom for us in the United States. So there does seem to be that appetite. Unfortunately, it still seems like something very much out of our control in a lot of ways, just because of the nature of pandemic, a desire for personal security, a need for personal security, vaccinations, that sort of stuff. I know we're hearing good news in that regard, collectively, about vaccinations. Wish it were faster. Wish it were tomorrow that we were all vaccinated. How are you feeling about, say, mid-year, second half, in terms of what you're gathering from, say, client appetite, as you noticed, willingness, comfort, that kind of stuff? What are you kind of hearing in that regard?
What, with regard to physical events?
Yeah, return to physical, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's still very quiet on the front here. I mean, London's been pretty badly hit. We're in complete lockdown here. Mm-hmm. And there's concern with new strains and so on. I mean, I know nothing about the scientific side, but there was a statement from Pfizer a couple of weeks ago saying that COVID's here to stay forever, just like the common cold or the flu. So I think that's obviously going to have an effect on whether people go back to physical events or not. And I guess certainly with international events, because your vaccination program in your own country may differ from ours here, and whether you'll be allowed to travel internationally or whether you'll want to as well. So it's I think this year it's not going to happen. I mean, Glastonbury's been cancelled this year, and that's an outdoor event. So I'd be very surprised if I see anything this year. I mean, we've got tickets to go and see the Killers this year in Wembley Stadium. It was actually for last year, but it got rolled over to this year. I can't imagine we'll be going this year either. Yeah,
I've noticed here in the States we're clamoring for, of course, return to tours as well, and music events. Funny that most of the things I'm hearing about are tour stops in UK versus US at this point for some bands that I follow. So I don't know if that reflects a hope or a greater certainty that UK is closer in. But I guess we'll kind of see. Our Northeast parts of the US are similarly impacted and under more strict lockdown, let's say, for events. But yes, as you noted, the science certainly above me as well. All I can reflect on is what I hear, and it certainly sounds like events are possible in this year. But we're going to just have to see on the timing of all the stuff beyond our control. In the meantime, I suppose, is there anything else, as you reflect back, and I wouldn't say it's a regret or something of that nature, but more as you think back, are the things that you would say are recommendations to companies as they're going through this and are trying to look for ways to stay viable? Are there things that you would recommend, even maybe backwards and or outwards to the industry, as far as how to diversify, how to scale up, those kinds of things? I think that would be great for people to hear. If you've come across anything that's not secret sauce, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, skill up is the main thing. I suppose if you have any funds available for marketing, and obviously have your marketing plan adjusted for this, then that's what we've been doing. We have found it tough, but I guess what's happening with companies like ours anyway is they're either reducing their costs, the operating costs, and the cost of the customer as well, and diversifying with their services, so offering more or changing what you're doing. It's a tricky one. I mean, really hard. I mean, as I said, we haven't actually done that well. I mean, most of our clients are venues and they've all been shut. So, we're trying to get on the bandwagon of getting these new clients in, but the competition is rife. There's a lot of bigger companies out there who are better funded than us, and it's very difficult. Yeah, I don't think there is any sort of magic bullet for it. No.
Sure. Yeah, not surprising. More just curious, kind of how you guys are thinking about it. I am interested in that competitive landscape, and you mentioned big firms kind of coming in. Are you seeing the nature of competition in this space changing as a result too? like you said, the kids coming out of school, fresh out of university now, who may have studied some of the new technologies. Is that kind of creating, and it's probably early, but is it creating new firm types out of this that are coming into the market, you think?
Yeah, I guess it's a fresh-faced approach. I mean, I've been in this game too long, really. It's a young man's game. So yeah, I mean, I'm really pleased with them. I mean, some of the people I've been working with in the past, and they're doing quite well. So yeah, I guess I'm probably nicking a few of their tricks off them as well. So it is changing the competitive marketplace for sure. But yeah, I mean, we're still trying to figure out what we're going to do, to be honest.
Makes sense. I think that's probably true of the bulk of companies out there, even large ones who, yes, may have some better funding to utilize to expand or experiment. Let's say. Let's see. There is a comment. I'm seeing if there's a question in this too. Part of the recovery process they've been insured utilizing digital. I think we were talking about that a little bit. You know, the opportunity for taking content and greater optimizing, digitizing, distributing, create online communities. Yeah, all path forward. But I think, as you're kind of noting, I would think a lot of this is in how your client base is evolving the way in which they engage their customers too. So part of the experimentation is not just you, the live events provider, solution provider, but also how are companies going to kind of come out of this in terms of the way in which they engage. So for example, at AVIXA, you know, we recognize that digital engagement is a much more important aspect than it was in the past. And probably some of that stays with us. Likely a good amount of it stays with us. Certainly there's opportunity for more continual ongoing engagement, not just at, say, an in-person events that anchors you throughout the year, but across a platform. So I would wonder about that as we go forward. That may even force a further evolution, I guess, in firms like yourselves as you kind of help them think through how do you create and distribute serve content in those multi-mode kind of fashions, you know, at an event, yes, but then throughout the year, once the event kind of closes in time, but then may continue. So long tail of content is a part of that. Is there anything that you can kind of divine about how your clients may be talking about that engagement and how it changes? Is it still too early? That's totally fine if it is. But is there anything you're hearing?
Well, I think that most of our clients or the content creators we would be working with, you know, the content was didactic. It's just a single directional flow. I mean, you know, there wasn't really any room for interaction unless it was an event, you know, where you had people in a room. So I guess there's a learning process there for content creators. I mean, that's part of our job as well as the production company, is to guide on the best way to create the content that's gonna get that kind of response from your audiences when they're remote. Obviously, shorter content is a big thing, and you can't have an hour-long symposium anymore. It's like 15 minutes or something. So, and so obviously branding it and making it look sexy, you know, having like little bits in between so you can break it up. Gamification is something we're looking at, so making it a bit more fun and having some kind of incentive to stay for the whole event and maybe some prizes and stuff like that. So, you know, all of this kind of thing is, I think, is going to improve the way you get your content across to your audience.
I'm excited by that too. I think, as you're noting, there's a lot of things being experimented with in this kind of virtual environment. News desk, curation, shorter clips, you know, all that gamification, interactivity. So I'm excited to see how that gets pulled into and or wrapped around our in-person events, because there's something here. While I certainly, I think we would both agree, we don't necessarily prefer this only, right? This is not enough. It doesn't allow me to shake your hand, buy you a pint, you know, whatever else would be nice to do before, after, etc. To connect to people in a more human way, let's call it. But it will be interesting to see how this does extend out, and it may possibly create new revenue opportunities. I think probably it does, but jury is out. Whether people will straight up pay for this as an add-on, you know, I think companies are trying that. CES just ran, and of course they were charging for this kind of an experience. So that'll be interesting to see. But I don't know about you, but I'm certainly excited to see kind of where this all goes in the future, even though it's painful right now to go through.
It has been painful, but it's been fun as well. I've managed to spend a lot of time with my wife, and we've had a fantastic time, and done a lot of learning as well. So it has been good. There's been positives for sure.
Absolutely. Well, Matt, I think we've run to the top of our time. We didn't get questions, no problem. I think we had a good engagement. Hopefully it was useful to people. Thanks to those that joined us today. Matt, would love to see you in person at some point in an event. Otherwise,
that would be great.
Be well, and all the best to you and AV Team UK as we go through the year.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.